Hello everyone, welcome to this property market update for November 22 for Townsville. Super excited to do this one, guys. I've actually seen Townsville very popular, particularly on a lot of social media forums that I'm a part of, particularly various property chats in relation to an investment hotspot. So I'm actually super excited to dive into this market update to really see and unpack what's going on in the market of Townsville. But as I always say, if you're planning on selling anytime soon, you're going to get a ton of value out of this. If you plan on buying anytime soon, you're really going to get a grips on what's going on here in this particular marketplace, guys. So sit tight, guys. I'm going to cover a lot of ground in roughly 30-35 minutes. So yeah, keen to dive in. So this property market update is proudly brought to you by Tropical Life Buyers Agency. My name is Troy Simpasani. I am the owner of the business, head of research and lead buyers agent. So I'm super excited to bring you these market updates. But as a buyers agent, we provide a fee for service representing the buying side of the transaction. So we're representing buyers here, guys, exclusively, and we're generally helping struggling home buyers, investors, and those that are geographically challenged. Check us out on our socials, visit us on our website, give us a call if you need help navigating this particular marketplace, guys. Thank you. So what I usually do as part of these market updates, guys, is look at the data to really paint a picture as to what's going on, right? We see things in the media, right? We hear things at family barbecues. We hear real estate agents talk about what's going on in the market. But for me, I want to provide, I suppose, data-driven analysis, breaking down what's really going on so you can then become best informed as to whether or not you want to buy or sell right now. So yeah, these are the sets of data we look at, guys. Median price change and what that looks like. We're going to look at the demand side, we're going to look at the supply side, we're going to look at then the rental side around vacancy rates and what the median rent's doing in the area. Then we're going to look at the future, right, the supply pipeline as well, to sort of see what picture we're getting in relation to the marketplace as a whole. Then I'm going to finish off with some high level summary and trends, guys. So yep, this is designed again to make sure that you become best informed when you go and try and navigate through this particular marketplace, guys. Starting off with the median house price in Townsville. So we can sort of see here that the median price in Townsville as of November 2022 is currently sitting at 412,000, right? Up from 400,000 in July 2022. So we've essentially had the median price grow by 2.8% in the last 4 months, right? So there you have it, guys. Townsville isn't a market that is retracting, right? We've seen various markets, particularly the capital cities across Australia, go through a retraction, right? But we have to remember that Australia, there are markets within markets, and we can sort of see here, despite what's been going on, particularly a lot of the negative sentiment in the media around the property market crashing, we've had consecutive interest rate rises. We've had a change in sentiment across the country when it comes to buying real estate and selling real estate. Yet here we have Townsville, which has grown by 2.8% in the last 4 months, guys. So yeah, super exciting for those that are in Townsville, particularly long-term residents, to see this median house price, surge along over the last, 24 to 12 months in particular. And a lot of these long-term property owners, are now sitting on some good equity. And we can see here that the market, is still chugging along nicely despite those headwinds. And I always say, guys, I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't really know where the market or this median price is going to go. But as part of this update, we're really going to look at what the supply pipeline looks like, have a look at those demand side metrics, and then maybe try and paint a picture as to where this median house price might go. And I can summarize what that looks like at the end. But as we can see, guys, Townsville is a market that's growing. There is some suburbs, particularly on the south side and then slightly north, that are not captured as part of this median house price data, but majority of the suburbs in and around Townsville have been captured. So we can sort of see here, yeah, if you actually looked at this median house price, funny enough, in comparison to, let's say, just Cairns, which is a market that we service, there's a difference between the median by, I'd say, close to about 150,000, if not $200,000 there. So even when you benchmark this median house price against the Cairns median property price, wow, there's just so much differentiation there. And Cairns is only the best part of 4 hours north, right? And the population center is a lot smaller. So, even if you're an investor right now, and if you're weighing up whether or not you want to park your money in Cairns or Townsville, if you looked at just the median house price differentiation, we can probably see here that, yeah, Townsville has the best part of 200,000 in catching up to do. I'm not saying that Townsville will do that. I'm just saying that, yeah, when you look at comparing it to Cairns, yeah, there's about 200,000 there in a difference in median house price. We've seen that median house price there in Townsville continue to surge along for the last 4 months, despite all those headwinds, and a good, I suppose, reason why, particularly median house prices continue to grow is that there is ongoing demand, but there is also, low levels of supply, right? Low levels of stock. And for this case, we can see here that Townsville in particular, that stock levels are sitting at 0.5%. And that means that just in the month of November, there were 459 listings, and that's actually been trending very low, and it's actually been trending quite low since the start of 2022. So overall, just from a general supply side, in terms of what stock or the frequency of stock that's coming onto the market relative to its population size and relative to demand, we can sort of see here that, it's trended really, really low, for a very long time here, under 1%, for certainly the best part of, I'd probably say, 2 years. So we've had a market here that's just contracting, contracting, contracting in terms of its stock levels over time, and it's gotten to a point now for the last 24 to 12 months, it's really got to a point where it's sort of, yeah, sat for a long time under 1%. But yeah, from a stock level point of view, guys, relative to the market size, relative to the population size, relative to demand, when we're going to break down demand, we can probably say here that it's certainly on the low side, and this is probably what's really driving that median house price, continuing to surge along, particularly in the last 4 months. And if we can see these stock levels remain, and particularly demand to remain the same also, then we're probably still going to be in a situation where the median house price will claw away. But we'll have a look to sort of see what those demand side metrics look like as well. But yeah, super low levels of stock here, guys, in Townsville. So we've seen there that there's been a long trend, particularly the last 24 months, right, where the listing volumes, right, the amount of stock that's coming onto the marketplace at any given time relative to the population size of Townsville is sitting under 1%, right, well under 1%, and sort of idling around that, it sort of fluctuate between sort of 300 to 500. So I'd probably say the trend sort of sits around 400 listings per month. And then what that correlates into in terms of inventory, and we can see here that that correlates to roughly, I suppose right now, 1 month's worth of inventory available in November. So roughly, yeah, 4 weeks in total, right? So based on, that frequency or velocity of listings in relation to then the velocity of sales, we can see here that Townsville right now in the month of November has, roughly around 1 month's worth of stock. So I always say this: if the market were to go into redundancy tomorrow, right, everything will basically be cleared out in a month. So you can sort of see, based on that velocity or that frequency in terms of the inventory that happens each month between 300 to 500, it's really only sort of will stretch for roughly around 1 month. So yeah, there is, from what I'm seeing, very low levels of inventory as a whole. And you can see here that that trend line has just been trending down ever since 2020. But over the last 3 months, there's been slight fluctuations, which is normal, leading into this particular time of the year, the spring selling season. I think there was no such thing this year across the country from the data that we've been looking at. So yeah, the last sort of 3 months have been a bit jumpy there, but overall, that inventory level, guys, is super low. So when you start to look at the listing volumes and then the total inventory, particularly for this month of November and its trend, the supply side in Townsville, guys, is very, very low. So we've just looked at the supply side, right? And those listing volumes and then the rolling inventory levels, we can see that the supply levels are just super, super low. So now let's have a look at the demand side. And once we can sort of marry the supply and demand together, that's really going to start to unpack where this market might be going, right? So as we can see here, the first demand side metric we look at is days on market. And essentially what that means is that, for every property that comes online or is for sale, it takes roughly these amount of days to sell. And in this case, as of November 2022 in Townsville, it's taking on average roughly 39 days for a property to come onto the marketplace and then sell, right? And this is change of ownership here, guys, 39 days. But if you actually look at this, right, 39 days, that just goes to show that Townsville right now is an extremely hot market, particularly around the demand side, because the average contract time in Queensland alone probably sits anywhere between 30 to 35 days. So we here have, an aggregate figure of all the suburbs in and around Townsville, and it's bidding out an average of 39 as a whole. So that just probably goes to say that, almost, I'd probably say 90% of the suburbs across Townsville probably have roughly around a 30-day on market, which is as hot as it gets really across the spectrum in terms of property markets as a whole, right? Where you have the best part of 90% of your suburbs where stock comes onto the market and selling very quickly. And there will be, suburbs here or there, I reckon, that probably selling for roughly, probably selling for, maybe 40, 45 days, slightly dragging up that average days on market to 39. But overall, guys, from a demand side metric, seeing this days on market, sit around 39 just goes to show that I'd probably say most properties are selling within the first 1 to 4 days of going into the market. And roughly most, just at an aggregate level, are probably selling within the first 7 days, right? So Townsville, from what we're seeing from this days on market data, is a really heated marketplace still. And November as well, 1 month away from Christmas, and we're still seeing, a really heated market. And we can see those black dots there as well. There are the discounting rates, right? And we're seeing days on market, right? This low days on market, we're seeing a really good correlation with the discounting rates, right? And what the discounting rates there essentially means, right, is that for every property that comes onto the market, right, let's say if it's an agent taking it to the market for $450,000, vendors are then buying that, or buyers are buying those properties for $445,000. So they've slightly discounted the property, right? And we can sort of see here that the average discounting figure for the month of November sat well below 2.5%. So on a $450,000 purchase, yeah, that's roughly, $10,000 to $12,000 there in discounting. But overall, the marketplace is strong. And when you have days on market, really, really low, not many people are, selling their properties at a discount, because there's just so much demand for one particular property when it comes onto the marketplace. So 9 times out of 10, people have to bid, over and above what the listing price is just to, get the deal done. But we can sort of see here at an aggregate level, yeah, the days on market is low, but the vendor discounting in relation to that figure of 39 is also trending very low, and that's two really good data metrics, that really tells us that the market in Townsville is very heated, guys. So let's take a look at these auction clearance rates, guys. And I don't read too much into auctions in these regional Queensland markets we're based, because they don't really tell us a lot in relation to, what's happening on demand side, like the capital cities, like Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, etc., where you can really use auction clearance rates to diagnose and temp check how the market is performing. But I always say this, guys, it's good to have a look at the auction clearance rate in these regional areas, because it still presents an opportunity to buy a property, and it still presents an opportunity to sell a property. So when you sort of want to unpack what's going on there and maybe extract some little gold nuggets potentially from this data, well, we can sort of see here that for the month of November, the auction clearance rate sat at 25%. And for the last 3 months, it actually did not exceed 40%. So we'll probably see here that there's probably been on average roughly 10 to 12 auctions per month. And of those 10 to 12 auctions over the last 4 months, 40%, it did not exceed 40% in terms of their clearance rate, guys. So a lot of properties are being passed in at these auctions or not being sold. So yeah, I suppose if you are looking to potentially sell your property and you think it's a property that might be better off sold at an auction, you probably can sort of see here that the clearance rates are fairly low right now. So I wouldn't be overly confident if I was planning on auctioning my property anytime soon. Obviously, this is aggregate data here, guys. There'd be, obviously suburbs and pockets within suburbs and particular properties that are in high demand. So always seek professional advice before you make these decisions, because your property might be one of those exceptions to the rule. But overall, yeah, those clearance rates, if I was a seller, I'd be quite worried about those. And from a buying side, I always say this, to buyers, right? When I see those clearance rates low, right, that means that the demand is less at these auctions. So if you are an active buyer in the marketplace and you found yourself in a situation where you missed out on a lot of property, maybe turn up at an auction and throw your name in the hat, because the best part of 60% of these properties are being passed in, so that may present an opportunity there for you to snap something up at one of these auctions, guys. So yeah, those are the auction clearance rates, guys. We won't look too much into this, but there are some gold nuggets there for buyers and sellers. So to really summarize what's going on the demand side, it's really good to break down and look at if the absorption rate is healthy or not, right? And essentially all the absorption rate is, right, is out of all the properties that have come onto the marketplace, what percentage of those have sold, right? And we can see here that from August to November, 73% of properties have sold, right? So we have an absorption rate in Townsville from August to November of 73%, and it's actually up from 70% during May to July. So we've seen a slight jump there in that absorption rate, guys. But if we had a look at what those figures look like as a whole, so we've had a total of 1,827 listings from August to November, and we've had 1,338 sales, and that sort of spat out that 73% figure, and that's a slight jump from 70% from May to July. So we're actually in a marketplace here where demand is accelerating and there's been a slight jump, and that's quite weird, right? Because generally what we've been seeing, particularly in my other market updates, is that the demand has sort of retracted slightly. The absorption rates have tapered off, in Cairns, in Townsville, in the Whitsundays, where I've done similar market updates, and we've looked at the absorption rate there, and majority of those have tapered off, towards this back end of the year. But in fact, Townsville has done the opposite here, guys, where we've seen, that absorption rate jump a little bit, since that May, July period. And this is just goes to show that, yeah, Townsville as a whole is in really, really strong demand, right? That absorption rate is extremely healthy. And yeah, guys, if you are planning on selling anytime soon, then you've got the best part of a 73% chance, of your property selling. And if you're planning on buying, there is a lot of heat in this market. There are a lot of properties changing hands, right? 73% of those properties that come onto the market are selling right away. So if you are an active buyer, be prepared to be in a situation where you are bidding against other parties, just because that absorption rate is really high here, guys. But overall, we can see that demand in Townsville is extremely healthy, guys, extremely healthy. So we've seen this, the sales side from a, demand, and we've seen it from a supply side, and we've seen that median house price surge along. We've seen stock levels super low on the sales side, and we've seen that demand, extremely high, days on market low, and we've seen that absorption rate really, really high, right? And if we were to poke our head over the rental side, we can sort of paint a picture as to what's going on there as well, because I know that Townsville has been a really highly discussed property market, particularly in investor forums. So heaps of investors are sort of coming into the area now, really attracted to what's been happening in and around Townsville. Obviously, there's been a lot of commentary by a lot of experts that Townsville is a market worth investing in. So if we want to look at what's happening from the rental side, so investors can determine what some of the yields might look like and how this rent trend has been tracking, particularly over the last 4 months, right? And we can see here that the median rent continues to follow the rising trend, now sitting at $404 per week for houses in Townsville, and it's actually up $6 or 1.4% since July 2022. So we have a rental market here in relation to its median house price grow by the best part of $6 in only 4 months. So that just paints a picture that we have a rental market here that's potentially heated and hot and has some steam in it still, and heading in a direction where this median rent as a whole continues to climb. No one has a crystal ball here, guys, in relation to where this rent would go. But if we actually looked at the demand side, macro and micro in relation to the rental market, then that's also going to really paint a picture as to where this median rent might go in relation, and in addition to also looking at what the supply pipeline might be in terms of new stock to maybe take a little bit of pressure out of this, median rent. But look, guys, if you're an investor, and I'm seeing, a $6 increase there, in 4 months. If we actually then multiply that over the course of 12 months, that's a total of what, $24 there. Your rent could rise annually right now, if you owned an investment in the area, by the best part of, $24 in a 12-month period. So yeah, those yields are looking pretty good and will only continue to get better from what we're seeing here with this rental trend in Townsville, guys. We've seen those median rents surge along there by $6 over the last 4 months, and vacancy rates generally, when those are sitting really low, right, that tends to then create that pressure on the rental market. So people, particularly owners of properties, right, investors jack up their rents or make market-based adjustments, that are relative to demand. And we can see here that Townsville, in terms of its vacancy rates, actually has been continuing, a downward trend for the best part of, 24 months, and it's now sitting at 1%, right? 1% vacancy rate with only roughly 122 vacancies currently available for rent in November 2022. So if you looked at that vacancy rate, yeah, relative to the population size, right? Yeah, that is extremely low, right? Townsville, close to 200,000 residents. It has also a lot of short-term residents, particularly those from the tourism and hospitality sector, and also those that are working in the construction sector on big infrastructure projects. So we have this sort of short-term population pressure. And then you also just have long-term population pressure, people moving into the area, families growing, etc. So if you looked at that vacancy rate, yeah, relative to the population size, yeah, sitting at 1%, and yeah, that equating to 122 vacancies. That is extremely low, guys, and we can probably see why that's causing that median house price to continue to surge along, and that trend is just trending down, down, and down. And a lot of property experts say, and I'm on the same boat as what a lot of these guys say in relation to, generally when you have heated rental markets, people that are renting and they're in good stable jobs, they have some money saved up, probably consider fast tracking, buying a property, because when, costs on average, roughly around $500 or more to rent a property, people start to go, have a dinner, have a coffee after, have a coffee and discuss maybe we should consider buying a house in Townsville rather than renting. So when the rental market's hot, that also then leads and spills over into the Dubai side, and that will create further pressure there in terms of the median house price as a whole. But yeah, overall, guys, yeah, these vacancy rates are sitting super low for Townsville, and if you're an investor, this is certainly a market where if you bought an investment property in the area, it'll rent right away, and you probably have a lot of applicants to, particularly then pick the best one for your property. So we've seen what's been happening from the median sales price in Townsville as well as the median rents and its associated vacancy rate. So we can see that both of those two parts of Townsville, the sales side and the rental side, has a lot of steam in it, right? And it may continue to have a lot of steam in it because we can see, and we've emphasized, that demand is also very strong in the area. So what will need to happen now to alleviate or take some of that pressure out of the marketplace is for new supply to come into the pipeline to alleviate some of that pressure. And if we were to just sort of highlight what's been happening from a new supply point of view, I like to look at the building approvals data, and we can actually see here that for the year-to-date building approvals, currently sitting at 264 overall, and this is the year-to-date approvals here, guys. And if we were to sort of benchmark that against, particularly the last 4 years, we can see that year-to-date spend or year-to-date approval rate, is very, very low. But I don't read too much into what's happening in terms of existing approvals right now. What I like to do is actually look at what's happened 2-3 years ago, right? Because what generally happens with building approvals, right, is developers get the approvals, then they take about 1 to 3 years to then bring the product to market. Obviously, go through finance, mobilize construction, sell the properties, get tenants in, etc. So what I like about this graph is that there's been a high rate of approvals that have happened in 2020 and in 2021. So hopefully we're going to start to see some of that stock hit the market in the next sort of 12 to 24 months to take a little bit of pressure out of that market. We did see some low levels of approval in 2018 and 2019. So a lot of that existing that potential stock or that new supply would be coming onto the market, I'd probably say within the next 6 to 8 months. But given that those levels are really low, I can't really see that doing too much in terms of taking a lot of that pressure out. And I know a lot of this new supply isn't medium density or high density, it's actually house and land packages on the south side of Townsville and on the northern periphery as well. And in terms of house and land packages, we know that they also take a long time to get built, as there isn't a lot of big construction companies in the area doing business anymore. And if they are, the majority of those are tied up in a lot of other projects. But yeah, guys, that will give you some indication as to what's happening from an approvals point of view and a future supply point of view in Townsville right now. But from what I can see, yeah, supply is looking very grim, particularly in the short term. Might see some midterm injections here with new supply that might take a little bit of pressure out. But for now, I think, yeah, the median house price will most likely continue to probably surge along, as well as the median rents. But I'll cover that off as part of my summary as well. So yeah, guys, that would have been a lot to swallow, particularly a lot of the data there. We covered a lot of ground with the supply side, the demand side, and then picking our head over into what's happening in the rental market. But if I can give you some key takeaways, so you can go away and then start to use this, whether or not you intend to buy very soon or sell. Let's sort of break those key takeaways down now from what the data is telling me in relation to Townsville. First off, that the median house price is growing, right? So we've seen, different markets across the country that have retracted, particularly in the capital cities, but Townsville is in fact doing quite the opposite. This is despite all of, the headwinds around, interest rate rises, obviously the change in sentiment across the country, doom and gloom in the media. So Townsville is on the increase. And when I look at that median house price in Townsville, this is just for investors per se when benchmarked against Cairns. Wow, the best part of $200,000 in difference there. I'm not saying that Townsville will close that gap on Cairns. I'm just saying when it is benchmarked against Cairns, there is some potential value for money there. But they're both very different regional hubs as a whole. So make sure you always seek professional advice before you dive into these markets. From the supply side, we can certainly see that, listings volumes don't appear to be sustaining the demand because we've seen that contraction of inventory levels, right? Despite, the frequency of listings we've seen in Townsville, that's just not enough to sustain the overall demand because we've seen that inventory just contract down to now sort of that 1 month worth of supply. And this is based on the current velocity of sales. So if the velocity of sales were to taper off and the demand to remain the same, we're going to start to see a continuing contraction there of that inventory just going down and down and down. That could be really, really a tough market to work in, particularly if you're a buyer, because you're going to be in a situation there where you're competing against other bidders because there's just not enough stock there to sustain that demand. But overall, like from an investment point of view, if you could get into this market, buy the right property in the right suburb for the right price, then you might certainly do well, particularly if the supply side continues to remain very, very low and this contraction continues, because that just puts so much pressure on existing stock, and that puts so much short-term pressure then on house prices where they start to balloon out, people paying offers overs, and that's where you get a lot of that short-term capital growth. So yeah, Townsville could be a market, guys, that certainly has a great window for that short-term capital growth. But as I said, there are suburbs and within Townsville that may not perform as well as other suburbs. So always make sure that you are doing your homework there, guys. Just from the demand side, we can see that probably across 90% of the suburbs in Townsville there is extremely high levels of demand, with most properties taking on average roughly 5 to 7 days to sell. And this is even close to Christmas, right? And we've seen, in other markets that we're involved in sort of taper off towards Christmas, right? That days on market number jump rather than drop. Here we're seeing Townsville just continue to remain extremely low. So yeah, guys, demand across, I'd probably say 90% of the suburbs in Townsville is extremely high. So if you're a seller, then you're in a great position there to take your property to market and do quite well. If you're a buyer, there are trying conditions here, and it'll be quite difficult to navigate. So make sure that you've got your house in order before you go to market. You understand what things are selling for. You understand if you're an investor, if it's the right suburb to park your money and you got your finances sorted, all of those key things, so that you can put your best foot forward when you go to buy a property, because it's such a heated marketplace here in Townsville. We can see from the rental side that vacancy rates are the lowest they've been in 24 months, and the median rent appears to be growing with, from what I can see, no end in sight. So yeah, we've had this contraction on the rental market now where vacancy rates are super low. And we know that when, supply is low, that puts pressure on, new supply and existing supply that is going to come onto the market, and people would just jack up their rents and make market-based adjustments because there is such a shortage. So yields are quite attractive, guys. If you are, a rental tenant at the moment in Townsville, probably buckle up for some rough roads ahead, particularly around your rents being adjusted to, what the market is doing, particularly if you've been locked into long-term tenancy agreements. So that can be, a bit of a change, particularly from the hip pocket and financial standpoint, when, your landlords are jacking up the rents to make these market-based adjustments. So for those that are renting in town, buckle up. And for investors, yeah, I think, it's probably a great opportunity as well to potentially capitalize on some of these market movements around some of the yields, of course. But, that's what's happening on the rental market in Townsville, and it's certainly one to watch going forward. From a new supply point of view, we can see here that it is likely in the short term, mainly house and land packages. However, that rate of supply might not be enough to take the heat out of the market, because house and land packages, the frequency of those coming onto the market is not as quick as, building, let's say, 4 or 5 townhouses, right? It might take, roughly the same amount of time to build those 4 to 5 townhouses as one freestanding home, or vice versa. It might take, a medium density apartment, right, that could accommodate 20 people, and you might get 20 people into apartments and only 3 people into house and land packages over the same duration. So we're probably going to see supply, particularly in the short term, may not be enough to cater for that ongoing rental demand and that tightness of supply, particularly on the sales side, guys. So yeah, from Townsville overall, supply is low, demand is high. Supply is low on the rental side, demand is high. So yeah, it's a market that it's just continuing to claw away here up in North Queensland. Again, guys, my name is Troy Simbassini, and this has been proudly brought to you by Tropical Life Buyers Agency. I am the head of research and owner of this business, and we are a buyers agency working exclusively on the buying side of the transaction. We provide a fee for service to search for property, to negotiate and secure it, and to facilitate purchase, and we help generally struggling home buyers, interstate investors, or just investors in general, and those that are geographically challenged. So yeah, guys, feel free to look us up, give us a call, or visit us on our socials. For those that have tuned in to watch this market update, if you do have any questions pertaining to this market update, feel free to drop us a line, leave a comment in the comment section, and we can unpack that together. Hey guys, thank you, over and out.